and we're wondering, did he get a new controller, or is that still going to be an issue?
Yeah, hopefully it won't be, but yeah, we saw his input just completely stop at some point during the race. All right, we're getting started here. These players are almost synced with each other. I'm going to just... let's see. Yeah, I'll sync them up just as they're entering this cave here so that we'll be together, and I'll let you guys know right now. They're both in the cave. So make sure you delay your stream so they're both synced up for you in the commentary.
I've got definitely one of them lined up, and now I just need to line the other to that one.
And Kingdahl just got the other jar.
Yeah, so I think I'm like a half second behind. Totally fine.
Well, no 50 bags.
Yeah. So why don't Air? Why don't you, as the third place on the leaderboard, very experienced Zelda 2 runner, regale us with the legend of the 50-point bag.
The legend of the 50-point bag.
Yes, in 14 line sonnet, if you can. Yeah, maybe just start talking.
So you want me to talk about, the mechanics behind it, or what you're going for, or just...
whatever you want, really.
Whatever I want.
Yeah.
Alright, so, start off with, be best to describe the leveling system of the game, in which if you look in the upper left-hand corner of each person's screen, you will see a number besides a sword, magic, and life. Each of these represent levels, which you can improve by getting experience. Now, every 6 enemies you kill of an enemy drop group will have a chance of dropping a P bag or points bag, which will provide 50 experience points in the first cave. So, almost every player tries to get a P bag there because it greatly assists in the amount of experience you need to get the ideal leveling out of the first palace.
That's right, the magic number is attack 4 coming out of Palace 1. And you have 2 opportunities for this 6 drop for the 200 bag. And if you don't get the 50-point bag, then you need both. So that's a 25% chance that happens. But if you get the 50-point bag, you only need one of them, and now you're looking at a 75% chance that you're at a Palace 1 with attack 4.
Right.
So the 50-point bag out of a small enemy group is only a 1 in 8 chance normally. But since every time you start the game, the RNG starts at the same position each time, a lot of players have attempted their own little method of trying to manipulate the P-bag in the first cave. If you don't get it, as alternatives, you can either go up and do Trophy Cave first, in the dark.
Yeah, we saw one player do that already.
Or you could pick up a 50-point bag that's hidden in a single forest tile just above Shield Town. I don't remember the proper name for Shield Town.
Right. You don't need to, don't worry. And we saw one of the players do that as well. So we saw both alternatives used here. We saw the early Trophy Cave, and we saw the 50 bag in the forest. And just a moment ago there, we just saw Solefad get the bubble skip. Kingdahl did not get the bubble skip. Kingdahl is definitely ahead, though. I'm not sure why. Is it because of the Trophy Cave? I think Solefad was the one who did the Trophy Cave, and Kingdahl didn't. So that time is going to come out later.
Mm-hmm. But it is still very, very close. Still very.
It's just you only aren't one in Palace 1.
Yeah. Well, we've seen how races can swing all the way up to the end of the game.
Oh, I've got the wrong background. I'm sorry, guys. Stream is ruined. I just ruined the stream.
Darn. All right, we'll tell them to restart. Everything will be fine.
Yep.
We'll get the right background up.
Background problems. Restart race.
So this is Palace 1. As we mentioned earlier, there's a ideal experience count, or ideal leveling, that each player will want to try and reach, which is in the Palace at Attack 4. The players will very much not want to get hit by the orange enemies, the tin suits. I was getting there. But they don't want to get hit by the tin suits, because even though they don't grant any experience points. If they get hit, they lose 10 experience points. And as mentioned earlier, experience is really tight, so... Each player handling them in their own little way. Solefad is using a little bit more advanced technique, while Kingdahl is just taking them nice and safe.
That's right. We'll see if either or both of these players jumps over the Staphoses here. Kingdahl tries to. Solefad succeeds. Now Kingdahl doesn't quite know what to do, but he doesn't want to kill it.
Like, that shield is right there now. What do I...
So skipping these... So, as mentioned earlier, there's a 6 count mechanic for drops. Skeletons are part of the big 6 group, or Stalfos. I keep calling them skeletons, I don't know why.
That's what I call them too, I don't know.
But Stalfos are part of the big 6 count. And so, by jumping over them here, they can force the drop later on to be off of them. Stalfos in this palace give 30 experience points. If you were to kill both of them, you would be getting the drop off of a 50 experience point enemy, so you gain 20 experience by jumping over to Stalfos.
Yes, because you don't get the experience for the enemy that drops something.
Yes.
Now it's just straight up stopping to kill these tin suits in this hallway here.
Some of our players just aren't comfortable with doing the jumping slash on them. If you mistime it, then you're basically guaranteed to just land on them. So.
Right, and losing 10 experience can be huge, especially if you went for early trophy cave, which only gets you 40 experience instead of the 50 that you would get from a 50 bag. So you definitely can't afford to get drained if you do that.
This tournament was sort of it was put together by a bunch of experts in the community, but the intention was to get new players into Zelda 2, and this would be a good way to do it. So
sure succeeded.
Yeah, it sure has. We had 42 entrants in this tournament, and that's really awesome to see. But it does mean that you're seeing various levels of people sort of on the learning curve for Zelda 2. Some people were excited to jump in even though they had no experience. So that's why you're going to see these different sorts of strats that are safer but more consistent.
Kingdahl having fun with the random bots.
Yep, these bots, this will be a recurring theme, but these bots are really hard to read, hard to predict what they're going to do. They will knock into you, and there's sometimes nothing you can do about it, so watch out for those. Anytime you see a bot, look out.
And just for completeness, bots are the little blue blobs that you wouldn't think are that difficult, but they're probably the most random enemy in the game, and they get placed in spots that can really put you in a bad spot.
Yeah, truly awkward.
Solefad did get his 200-point P-Bag, so he has enough experience to get attack 4 now.
Yep, he's got plenty of experience, and there's nothing else that'll drain him, so there's nothing that can go wrong with the leveling, I don't think. And Kingdahl is about to come up to his first shot at a 200 bag drop. Let's see if he gets it.
He's also trying not to die there. The bots were camping out the stairs at the bottom, so he made sure he played it real safe and actually ended up taking a risk just because they didn't want to cooperate.
Kingdahl does not get it.
Staring at that jar there.
He was thinking about grabbing it, but there's not any real advantage to it.
That's right, no life spell at this point.
That's right, Solveig has a second P-Bag, but he doesn't need it. Kingdahl not going for that fairy. A lot of people, when they're down to beeping, would go for that free fairy there. And Solefad might have a real problem on his hands.
Now, what Solefad could have done was if he picked up that 200-point P-Bag, he could have taken a life level and still had enough experience.
He sure could have, and that's we see a lot of people do that. That's definitely worth doing. Get that life refill. But Solefad manages to finish this fight off with the beeping. Kingdahl also dealing with some beeping right now.
Yep, it's casting shield, hoping that's enough to survive a hit here. I don't know if it is. But...
It might be. I don't think so. At life 1, I think even with shield, he'd be dead. Looks like the orange iron knuckle.
Also strong enough to kill him through shield.
Yep, apparently. So, Kingdahl already down a life. We saw how much of a difference that made in the last race. We saw there, every one of these lives is important.
Yep, and lose enough lives and you game over. Alright, so he is going to have, wait. He needs 50 more, right? He's got it. Okay.
He's good.
He has enough.
Yeah.
Solefad has already done the trophy cave, so he's going to move right on to the jump town. We'll see how Kingdahl does with his horsehead fight.
Gives him 3, and now he needs 5 here before he pushes him off screen.
Ooh, finishes it just... Not too bad. That was a pretty good fight from him. You can't take it? There we go.
These level up prompts can be really startling as you're speedrunning. And like in a situation like that, you eventually kind of learn to expect it, but they will pop up regardless of what you're doing, jumping, attacking. If it hits the number, then level up a prompt appears. And if you're not ready for it, for whatever reason, you have to process it. You have to figure out, what am I doing? What do I want? And that takes time. So you'll see these hesitations in the menus, maybe even some cursor movement is like, what am I doing here? And it's that can add up over the course of a run. So I think like a starting player could probably save 30 seconds to a minute, I think, just on menu hesitation alone.
And we got Kingdahl right now going for this trophy cave because he didn't do it already. And by the way, earlier that fairy that we saw one of the players not grab, that's because he had already grabbed it earlier, so that's the reason he didn't go for the fairy despite the beeping, as Greenleaf pointed out.
Gets hit by a bat and then just decides, I don't want to jump over that pit. The bat's waiting for me. Oh, guess who else is waiting for him?
Nocturok. Oh, well. Well, that's 2 deaths for him now. This is his last life. If I were him, I would jump into this lava right after picking up the trophy, rather than trying to do this with 1 life and risking a game over in a really inconvenient spot. The rule is that if you game over in this category, because you're not allowed to use game overs to warp to gain time, you can, if you happen to take an accidental one, you have to go back to the room that you game overed in, and that's to prevent players from using it as an advantage. Let's see if he jumps in the lava here. That would be the smart play, I think. Doesn't.
No. It's a little outside the box, so if you're a newer player, you might not be familiar with the idea of maybe it is actually faster to game over. And then again, if you're having a lot of trouble early on, you might be placed in this situation more often, so maybe a newer player would be more familiar with the idea of this early game over here. It looks
That's
like
true.
he's farming here for life. Okay. And then, he wanted to cash out on his experience before he died. All right. Now he's looking for something that hurts more than a bot.
That makes sense. I would just go back to that cave, but this will work. Actually, this is not bad. This is an okay encounter right here. These things will drain you, these orange moblins, but he's already at 0 experience.
I don't know if the 50 experience was worth it for the...
No, he could easily get that from a drop. I don't think he needed that. But I guess that is what he was doing. So he knows what's up with this intentional game over stuff.
Yep.
Hopefully he can find what tile he died on. I wasn't really paying attention to exactly where it was.
Yeah, me neither. But I don't think anyone would call him out on it. Like, hey, you missed it by 4 tiles.
Right.
So in the meantime, Solefad has gone through Jump Cave, visited Bagu, found the mirror under the table, and has now picked up the life spell.
Nice.
One of the best spells in the game, for just a small cost of a lot of magic. It restores, 3 bars of health. And so, pretty good trade-off, say so myself.
Yeah, you'd think, like, that when speedrunners, they get eventually to a point where they're so good, they don't need to just refill their health, they just don't get hit. But this is not one of those games. Even super top tier players take hits all over the place, and having the life spell to sort of buffer that is huge. There are some categories where you actually getting the life spell is a choice. This is 100% all keys, so you have to get all the spells, so you have to get the life spell. But there are other categories where you don't have to get all the spells, and it actually becomes a choice whether or not you get the life spell. And it becomes this sort of trade-off of a lot of safety having the life spell versus saving a fair bit of time. But when you want the top-tier times, that's what you have to do. And I think Error has a bit of experience running without the life spell. Am I right?
No.
Other categories? No?
I haven't done too much of that.
Yeah, because it's not fun. So
About
the life spell here.
About the only... Well, there's two categories that don't really pick up the life spell. There's just straight up any percent, which you're just warping all around Hyrule and glitching all over the place. The other one is a category Fusel's has really focused on pretty recently, which is any percent... what's the best term for it? Up A?
I call it any percent no wrong warps is what I call it, but it's basically no major glitches, no major skips. That one, you also don't get it. People could skip it in any percent deathless, but I think currently the standard is that you do still get it. I think people still do. We got Solefad making his way through Death Mountain here. He clearly knows what he's doing. I see a lot of confidence in his movements here.
He's able to trust his controller to a certain degree.
Yeah, hopefully he's got his controller fixed now, so that's not going to be an issue for him. But
Attack 4 certainly helps with that.
Yeah, it sure does. You're at a real disadvantage if you're doing this with Attack 3. But yeah, Attack 4 is good, and that means he can also afford to spend all of his experience on other things like taking Life 3, which is pretty big. Coming into Death Mountain with Life 1 or Life 2, you're going to have a hard time, but Life 3 you should be in good shape. He could even afford to take Magic 2, although I think if it were me, I would save it for a little bit later. But yeah, once you have Attack 4, you don't have to rely on random drops anymore throughout the run. He's going back for that red jar, but he doesn't really need that because he's about to get one in the next room. But then again, this is a race and he's winning, so he doesn't want to have anything bad happen to him at this point.
So Kingdahl is about to enter Life Town. He did pick up the Swamp 1-up. So he does have an extra life to help him out in Death Mountain.
Yep, we'll usually see people get that Swamp 1-up after Death Mountain when they go through the Medicine Cave, because you're right there and it helps set up some nice encounter spawns. But if you're a little bit unsure about safety in Death Mountain, maybe you do want that 1-up early. So it certainly doesn't hurt, other than the few seconds it takes to go out of your way to grab it.
Kingdahl picking up the life spell. Solefad killing yet another red Dyra. Making sure that he backed up a little bit there. It is possible to knock that Dyra off screen or leave the screen before his experience ticks, and that's a really bad thing because then he doesn't die and he's there to greet you on your way back.
Mm-hmm.
In a really, really bad spawn too.
Yeah, very bad spot.
I think you're guaranteed to get hit at least twice if you fail to properly kill him.
Solefad's got the hammer now, and he can afford to cast the life spell because he got a random red jar drop. That was a 50-50 chance. At this point, it doesn't really matter too much if he's getting 200 bags or red jars, so maybe red jars would be a nice, safe drop for him to get because he gets a health refill out of it. Getting the 200 bags, even when you've already got Attack 4 coming out of Palace 1, getting the 200 bags will mean that you get your next attack level sooner, so that could in theory save you a little bit of time. Some people don't like to pick up P-bags when they don't need them though, just because they like to have their experience in a pretty controlled state so that they know exactly when the level up prompts are going to happen, so they're not surprised by them.
I can definitely understand that with a player who's still just learning is a little unfamiliar with things, that having that extra layer of unfamiliarity is definitely uncomfortable and can affect your play in a lot of different ways that can add up to be overall worse.
I do it too.
You'll see that a lot more in the other categories, though, because the main benefit of saving level ups is that when you level up life or magic, you will get a free restore of the resource you just leveled up in. So, in the other categories, you're not required to pick up all keys. So, if you come across a locked door you don't have a key for, you'll be able to cast Fairy to fit through the door. That requires lots of magic. So, a lot of players will try and save a magic level up at times where they're ferrying through doors and absolutely need a magic level up. Since we're requiring all keys in this category, it's really not all that important to be saving experience to level up at a particular time, although it is useful in a couple of places.
Right, yeah. In other categories, you can't have too much experience or too little. You're in a pretty narrow window, but in this category, it's only too little experience that you really worry about. But we see Solefad here grabbing the Graveyard 1-Up. This is optional. People ask sometimes, is it worth grabbing that Graveyard 1-Up and then taking an intentional death in the Medicine Cave? And it is not. It is slightly slower to do that. But in a race, you'll see a lot of people getting this just for that extra safety factor. And we've seen so many races where accidental deaths end up making a difference in the outcome. So I certainly don't blame players for going out of the way to get that extra 1-up. I sure would. You also saw... Go ahead.
Kingdahl there taking a moment to think about his level up there. He ends up with Magic 3. I think he's going to be okay. I don't think that was necessarily a mistake.
Magic 3 is a bit non-standard. The standard leveling is Magic 2 Life 3 before you just continue focusing on attack and
or less.
Getting the big Palace bonus. Magic 3 is a little bit risky because that means you're required to get more experience. So, but with Attack 4, he's still probably okay.
He's going to need a drop, though. He can't just get it from the bare minimum experience. He's going to need at least one 200 bag drop. And Solf had taken the intentional death. I didn't see what his magic was. Was his magic low?
Yes, it was.
That's the reason, then. So these guys need to have enough magic to cast the jump spell by the time they reach the town that's got Fairy in it, because in order to get downstab, you need to cast jump to get up onto the second level of a building, and if you don't have enough magic for it, you've got to walk all the way past that building and then come back again. So taking that death there was actually pretty useful to get his magic refilled.
It's about, I think, 10 seconds if you don't have enough magic.
That sounds right. And Solefad getting a very common path encounter just as he gets off the grass there. There's actually a way to avoid it, but I see a lot of people getting encounters there. And that was a neat move by Solefad, ducking down there, I guess, to get the encounters not to spawn at that broken boulder, I think is what he was trying to do, avoid a path encounter there.
Yeah. If it works, it's glorious. If it doesn't, well, you've wasted 2 steps and you continue on with life.
Oh, I'm going to try that. I like that strat. It probably depends.
Unless you happen to get unlucky and get a step encounter on the same spot, depending on where you, when and if you take a random encounter leaving the Medicine Cave.
Here we
so
have
the layers there, basically, in the decision making and the optional strats. There's a lot of things that players have kind of dug into to give themselves as much control over these random monsters as they can, because it's a big source of time loss, and they're highly random, I guess. They're sort of deterministic, but there's a big random element there that can cost you a lot of time. So yeah, there's been a lot of research, a lot of thought put into how can we mitigate the damage that these monsters are doing to our speedruns. And now I'm curious if Beazle remembers what he was going to say before I cut him off.
I don't. Nope.
Complete gone.
Well,
right.
Kingdahl has the hammer. Solefad has picked up the downstab, and has now picked up the most broken spell in the game, which is the Fairy spell. But we banned most of the brokenness in this category, so
that's
sorry.
right. Yeah, what defines this category, besides the 100% definition, is the all keys definition. Normally you would have to... Well, normally you need to collect the keys, but because you have the fairy spell, you can actually cast fairy to go right through these doors. And most of the other categories require people to manage their magic and cast fairy at just the right times to get through these doors. But in this, you've got to go through and collect all of the keys. So the fairy spell doesn't really do all that much. There's going to be 4 required uses of it, but you might see players using it just to make things a bit safer or to save themselves if they're about to fall into a pit. Solefad getting... Wow. Sorry, I meant Kingdahl was getting some rather unfortunate encounters coming out of Spectacle Rock. You were saying?
I was going to say, or if Solefad had gotten in a red jar, he could have skipped the item fanfarian for picking up non-keys, non-jars, any permanent items.
Yeah, that's
but he got a bag, so.
Yeah, that's a common thing. There's a couple opportunities where players have the opportunity to ferry to save time like that, but it is a lot of magic, especially early on. So there's sometimes you get yourself into trouble. You need to cast a life spell, and then you lose that opportunity to save time there.
Oh, I think Solefad had a pattern where he could have just gone to the left and had a pretty good shot of making it to the palace without another encounter. But he's choosing to play it safe. And now he's in Palace 2.
Meanwhile, I'm pretty sure Kingdahl's got... I saw him get a 50-point bag and a 200-point bag. So I think he's going to be okay on experience despite taking Magic 3.
We'll see. He's at 886. I think he needs a little bit more than that, to be honest.
Yeah, he will need to get to 500 before the boss, after taking his attack level up.
It's 700 for Magic 4? 700?
Yes.
Okay.
So I think he's probably okay, but it'll be close. He'll have to kill everything. One of the bonuses of not being at Magic 3 is that you'll be able to skip a lot more enemies. Made much easier with the downstab technique. A lot safer. But Kingdahl is going to have to be fighting basically everything in Palace 2 now to reach the amount of experience required to get the attack level and get the bonus attack level at the end of the Palace.
That's right. This Palace bonus that we're talking about, every time you put a crystal into the monument at the end of the Palace, the game bumps you up to whatever the next level that you haven't got yet, whatever the threshold is for that. So it looks at how much experience you have, what the level up threshold is for attack, magic, and life, and whatever is above the current amount of experience you have is the thing that it gives you. So you want to get past what it takes for the next magic level up and the next life level up, so that your next level up is going to be attack, and then you'll end up with getting thousands of experience. So that's how you're able to power level in this without having to stop and grind.
Kingdahl took a little detour. He grabbed the heart container first before going and getting the medicine.
That's interesting. I don't think I've seen that yet in a race.
Can you think of what sort of advantage that would offer?
The only thing would be is if you're like low on health and magic, and you couldn't take a death.
Yeah, if you're low on health, you could do it, but you may as well just duck into that square that's got a fairy. There's this fairy on the way over to Magic Cave.
Yeah, that's a bit out of the way. You're probably guaranteed to take at least one encounter out of that. If
Not in the swamp, but in the trees, to the south of the path.
That's the one I thought you were talking about.
Oh, really? Okay, that's... I guess it's going to depend where you get your previous encounter. You may be able to get to that without an encounter. I think it's close enough to the path, right?
It's quite a few steps down there. You might be able to make it.
I'm not sure. I haven't experimented with it, but that would be another possibility. But yeah, you're right that's probably the only reason for getting that heart container early is if you were worried about having low health for Medicine Cave.
Well, coming out of...
We'll see how many steps it is actually down there. It's probably 10 or so down there?
Yeah, maybe. So yeah, you're right. You may run into another encounter there.
Yeah, coming out of Medicine Cave, he's not looking too good on magic and life, so maybe it was the right call.
And the forest encounters in this area are very, very hard. So if he was trying to go down to the ferry to save himself and then got a forest encounter on the way there, he'd probably die.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Preps the jump spell, but does not have enough to cast it, so he has to walk past the church, get it refilled.
And walk back.
So meanwhile, Solefad has picked up the handy glove to allow him to break blocks in the palaces. Required item in all categories of the game, because the game likes to put these blocks in the way. You'll see him having to break some in the next room.
Yeah, you can get totally stonewalled, literally, I guess, by the blocks that fall in front of you before you get the glove. It's pretty rare that they form a 3-tile high thing that you can't get over. Well, you can, but you need a running start. But yeah, if they decide to do that, you kind of just have to back up and try again.
He also did grab magic too. I missed when he did so, but he probably was saving it for Palace 2 at some point in time.
Yep. It's nice to have an extra magic refill in Palace 2. Gives you more of a chance of being able to cast Fairy in the item room, although he did not this time. A pretty safe play for Race to just save, to not save those 2 seconds from skipping the item pickup animation and just save your magic for a cast of life.
Yeah, I think he didn't like his life situation going into the glove, so opted to keep his magic. It's the right decision, I think, because he's pretty low on resources here. But he's most of the way through this palace, I suppose.
Yeah,
I believe he has
getting
enough
that band.
for a shield spell, which he has queued up, so...
Is he going to dig for the... He's not going to dig for the jar. The 124, he's probably way above that.
Kingdahl working his way through the swamp here, gets an encounter. And we'll see how he manages after that. Get to the path. Yeah.
Yeah, he's in good shape here. Kingdahl coming into Palace 2 just as Solefad is on his way out of it. More than enough experience here for Solefad. I'm not entirely sure Kingdahl's going to be okay. We'll know in a few. Trying to bounce off of Helmet Head's head there, but Solefad manages to push him off the screen instead, which is kind of tricky to avoid. Helmet Head's going to wander left and right randomly. You can't control that. You can control the firing pattern of his bullets. Those will be on a fixed timer, but his side-to-side movements you cannot control. Right here, Solefad should have been equipping the fairy spell. You get a free chance to equip a spell while you're waiting for the music to play at the end of the level. And you can go in and out of your menu and queue up your next spell. But here we go, we see attack level 6. So he's right on track. 623 is probably the most common thing we see people going into Palace 3 with. Gets an encounter on just the right spot to get the Tomb Walk. Let's see if he knows how to do the Tomb Walk. That's just the right spot for it. Oh, well, we'll never know because he got into another encounter there.
Yeah, you give yourself a pretty good chance to dodge that encounter by getting to the grass and having things spawn farther away, but both Link moving and the slime coming right at him actually closed that distance pretty quick.
Yep, so we had to go with a couple of path encounters instead of being able to walk all the way to the tomb without any monsters spawning, which is the thing we were talking about setting up, but he's doing fine. He's doing fine. Casting Fairy, this is the first of 4 required uses of the Fairy spell in this run.
So an interesting tidbit about the cave that Solefad is going through right now is that if you're really observant, that's the same enemy pattern as the heart container cave. If you were to happen to leave the heart container until after Palace 2, there would be no enemies in that room because you killed them all in the heart container cave.
Yep, whatever flag that gets tripped when you kill that guy is the same flag for the enemies in the heart container cave. There's a lot of reuse of memory, I suppose, in this game. You're probably going to see a couple of repeats of rooms in these palaces.
That's right, and normally you wouldn't notice things like that. The game can take shortcuts because those flags get reset every time you go into a town or palace. So they're not expecting that the players will reach the same room twice without having gone into either a town or palace. But in a speedrun it can happen. And
Timely blue jar from Kingdahl, so he can safely ferry past the final bot.
Yeah, that is the scary room.
Yeah.
One of two really big places in the game where those random bots can absolutely ruin your day by jumping into you and knocking you into the lava.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, 3 if you're going for the
one-up?
One-up in Palace 7.
Magic 3 here grabs a pretty big refill of magic.
That's good. We've seen a couple people accidentally get Magic 3 when they didn't need their magic refilled. And that's always unfortunate. But it's good to have Magic 3 here. He has a couple options. He can use that to cast the life spell. He can use it to cast Jump in this room with the bots, which is a terrible room. It's nice to have Jump here for safety. He can also use it to cast Fairy in the next room. We'll see what he chooses to do with it.
A weird little hesitation there after picking up the pea bag. I wonder if he was expecting a level up prompt.
He might be.
That is one of the worst places in the game for a level up, because if you get caught jumping while leveling up, there's usually a bot waiting on you for the other side, so you can put yourself in a bad spot.
Kingdahl going for a red jar. In Palace 2, all of the statues that can possibly drop a red jar will drop a red jar. There's no chance of getting an iron knuckle from one of those statues. Palaces 1, 2, and 5 work that way. So he knew that was going to be there, guaranteed, so that's why it was worth casting Jump to get it. And it's a smart play. You don't want to end up with any more accidental deaths. He's already had to take one intentional game over to get his lives back.
Solefad did use the jump strats on the way back of the lava bot room.
Mm-hmm. Another smart play, and I think he still has enough to cast the life spell. Is 4 boxes enough for that at Magic 3?
I believe so. I think it's probably dropped down to 60 at this point, so I believe it's 3.5 bars.
Okay.
Right now.
Each bar of magic is worth 16 points, and the spells have point values that you see once these guys pop into the menu. You see some numbers, and that's how many points it costs to cast that spell, and that amount goes down every time they get a level up.
And as just saw on Kingdahl's screen, he went to the menu to cast life, and it does cost 60 in Magic 3. It also looks like he's going to have enough experience. He's at 353, just needs to get to 500, and there's definitely a bunch of enemies left, so he could probably get away with taking Life 3 here as well.
Yeah, at this point, taking Life 3 isn't going to affect the threshold that he needs to surpass in order to get the bonus, because Magic 3 is already way more expensive. Solefad having a little trouble finishing this off, but playing it real safe. There we go, Iron Knuckles down.
You know, Kingdahl having a scary moment.
Far to the left. Oh, go.
Yeah, the scary moment with the, what is it? Not Doom Knocker.
Rattler.
Doom Rattler?
Doom Rattler.
Yeah, he 1 health there with the Doom Rattler guarding the key, but he comes out okay. He moves pretty confidently through the tin suits as well with the down stabs.
if he knows about it, we probably will see the red jar dig here.
And there it is. You're right. Good call. He's got to find the spot, but yeah, this is a not
He
very
just knows
well-known,
it's there somewhere.
Yeah, not a very well-known red jar. A lot of people have no idea this thing's there, but it can be extremely helpful. This is just a good spot to get a refill of magic. And he's grabbing that extra 100 experience. Let's see. I think he's going to be... He has plenty of experience. He's okay.
Yep. As long as he doesn't take life 3 or something.
He can still take life 3 and be okay.
He probably can.
Because life 3 is 150 experience, and then he'd still need to get to 500.
Yep, I wonder if he knows that. He has an opportunity after he kills this last guy. Oh, now he doesn't even need it, but he maybe should just to make it a little safer.
I imagine he'll skip here.
He's thinking. He had to think hard, but he skipped it. Alright, let's see how this helmet head fight goes. Some very cautious strats, keeping the distance, going for only one hit at a time.
I think his game plan is get him to the side of the screen and do the jackhammer.
Maybe.
So he was just kind of following through on phase 1, get him to the side of the screen, hit. Because all of a sudden he jumped in there with real aggressive. It's possible to kill Helmet Head really fast with a combination of jumping crouch stabs and down stabs and maybe even throw in a whirlwind for good measure. We've seen people just go nuts all over him. So that's always fun to see.
So Solefad has just picked up the most worthless spell in the game. He picked up the fire spell. Basically, it lets your sword shoot fire, which isn't nearly as good as it sounds. Basically, it extends your beam sword, and allows you to hurt a couple of enemies that you really don't need to be stopping the kill anyway. So, but
Yeah,
it's
maybe if
100%
it was-
OP, so
Yeah, we had to get it for the category. What if it was like really cheap to cast?
it does get pretty cheap to cast at Magic Gate, but it's pretty expensive right now, so it's
Yeah.
just really not worth it.
But like
There's-
right now, what if it was like half a box of magic?
We could probably find a few spots for it, but to be honest, there's a lot of enemies that are pretty much immune to beam swords, so
Dang. It's got
Yeah.
so much riding against it.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that they probably should have just made it much cheaper so that you're using the fire spell all over the place early in the game. I feel the same way about Reflect. I think Reflect could have gotten a lot more use as well, except that it's so darn expensive that it's not worth using for one room. It goes away after you exit the room. So that's kind of stupid. But we will see both of those spells get a little bit of use in the speedrun. Maybe. We might see the fire spell get some use, but we'll definitely see Reflect coming up in a little bit.
It's because Reflect's required.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, Fire does get a couple of uses in New Game Plus, or it could be useful in New Game Plus, just because it's especially good for killing bots in the lava bot room.
Oh yeah, that'd be really good.
But
Well, we'll see what Solefad does here with this walk through the forest. He waited till the music was at a certain spot to get those monsters to spawn. Now he's going to walk a very specific path here and try to get 2 spawns right there as he's leaving the grass. So far, so good. Does he get up to the encounter skip? A little bit of pause buffering, and he manages to get it. Well done. So that skips an encounter with a bunch of Octoroks. It's very slow, much faster to take a random encounter. And here we got part 2. Oh, he's got a couple of fairy spawns. That's going to be much harder to work with. They're not cooperating, but he's going to want to keep walking to trigger the step-based one. No, keep walking. There you go. And
he's extremely low on health here. He could easily die.
he sure could. And these levers here do 3 bars of damage to you.
So shield would not have saved him if he
Nope.
jumped on the lever.
Yeah, you're right. It would not have saved him, but he just barely got that encounter skip and survived it. So good on him. He's in great shape now. He's going to need to talk to some sort of healer here. But let's see what kind of rooftop jump he gets. First, he's got to wait for all this stuff.
Alley-oop.
2. Second try. Very good. That is better than average. We see people averaging about 3. Or the players that are really experienced, we see them averaging about 3.
Yeah, that's true. We've seen as many as like 10 before just like a complete abandon go the long way. You're meant to jump around on some rooftops. There's one
It's
that's
really
a
a
little
bummer.
lower down.
You're just feeling all bummed out if you have to abandon it too.
Yeah. And you're like, there's no strategic reason why I'm doing this. Like if it was faster to retry once, it's faster to retry until I get it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a complete like